So we'll start off with, hi, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm excited.
I love it, I love it. Are you from Los Angeles originally?
Yeah, I was actually born and raised in Los Angeles. Yeah, I was kind of near the Clover City area, near Crenshaw. I grew up there.
Wow, nice. I'm from Texas, so it's always cool to see people who are born and raised here, because sometimes it's hard to find people who are born and raised here. I feel like everyone's from everywhere else.
Yeah, it's a very popular city, so I definitely can see that, and I just welcome everyone.
Yeah, I love it. So you were born and raised here. Do you have any siblings, or were you an only child?
I am the oldest sister. I have two brothers, younger brothers. I want to say now the second oldest is 22, and then the youngest is 20, and I'm 24, soon to be 25, so I'm the oldest.
Nice. It's good that you guys are all close in age too.
And the two brothers, they're hearing. I'm the only one that's deaf.
Okay. When did you find out that you were, per se, different maybe?
I was born deaf. In the exact story, my parents kind of made it a little complicated. My dad said I was actually born hearing and then sick and then became deaf. And then my mom said, no, you were just born deaf. So, I was just really lucky to just grow up in an environment where my parents did know a little bit of sign, and then they took me to a deaf day school called Marlton School of the Deaf. I was able to go there, and I automatically identified as deaf. And I just grew up in that environment, culturally being deaf and accepting who I am.
Which is awesome, and it's good to hear that your parents were, I guess, kind of already knew a little bit of the sign language and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you knew it when you
Really lucky.
Yeah. So you knew it early on. You're saying your parents kind of had conflicting stories. Around what age, maybe, did you particularly know? Was there a point where you were like, okay, I know, or was it more so just, you just kind of went with the flow and you were like, yeah, okay, I can tell?
Honestly, I just kind of went with the flow. I did have struggles, especially with accessibility, oppression relating to deaf people, and a lot of things that I had to fight over and overcome and show that I wasn't afraid. And I know like the hearing world as well as the deaf world kind of get scared to approach each other. And I think that's really why I'm here and why I do the things I do, because I don't want to miss the opportunity to, connect and bridge the gap with the hearing community. Because we have options either way. We can write to each other, we can gesture, we can bring in an interpreter, we can teach ASL to each other. There's options there. And it doesn't matter if you're a deaf person or a hearing person, there should be still ways to bridge that gap. And sometimes it's sad because sometimes hearing people still are ignorant to this day about deaf people and our needs. And I feel like it's important now that the movie Coda came out. People are recognizing deaf people. The deaf man, Troy, won the Oscar award. And I just want to keep that energy. And that's why I'm here to show you all that I'm here, I'm deaf, and I can do anything.
Wow. It's that's kind of one of the primary reasons I think I wanted to bring you on, is that there were certain questions that, per se, I was kind of curious about and wanted to get a bit more information about, of just how people can kind of move forward and be a little bit better, because I know that people do tend to, like you said, kind of oppress people or just not know how to communicate in certain ways. And it's sad, it's a sad thing. Not everybody is accepting of things, and so I kind of wanted to bring you here, ask those few questions, and just kind of, see how people can be better. So when you were little, when you were a kid going to the school and stuff, obviously, like you said, you went to a school for the deaf. So I'm sure it was a bit more of a welcoming environment, or was it not so much of a welcoming environment? What was your experience?
It was kind of complicated. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it looks like outside looking in, but again, I'm very lucky because the teachers, the assistants, the staff, everyone used American Sign Language. And I had the chance to communicate any of my needs or express anything I would like to do, and it gave me a lot of confidence when I grew up. It had a big role in how I act when I was in sports. I was also president of like the student class and things like that. It was just a very friendly environment for me, and it taught me how to be who I am and how to teach other deaf children how to be who they are. And that school was really nice because they also had hearing students too, K through 5th grade. So I had a chance to also educate the hearing students about deaf students. And that environment was really amazing for me. I felt welcoming, I felt like it was a home. And anytime I visit the school, I feel like it's my home, so yeah.
That's awesome, because you really don't hear of, I guess, I don't know, maybe you do hear stories like that, but when you do hear them, you feel good about it. I like to hear that students were inviting, students were nice, and like, so you kind of got to practice and kind of teach both ways. I can say in my school, I went to per se maybe, regular junior high, high school, all that sort of stuff, and I don't think anybody in my class was deaf or was, per se blind or just anything like that. And so it's nice to see that this school was integrated because, again, it provided those students some education on something that a lot of students don't have the education on, flat, simple sort of thing.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, I was talking to my sister about it, that there should be more schools that integrate people with disabilities and people who do not have disabilities to educate them. Because to this day in this hearing world, like I said, people are still ignorant. There's still oppression against deaf people or disabled people. People are scared, they don't know what to do, how to approach those certain individuals. And I think if you teach them at a young age, obviously they can work on it and it'll be better when they grow up. So I have been discussing that with my sister, and yeah.
No, I definitely 100% agree with you on that. When you transferred from high school or junior high, did you go to college afterwards or no college?
So I did graduate high school, and then I went to El Camino Community College. It's in LA, in Torrance. I went about 2 to 3 years there. I got a 4.0 GPA. Everything was going great, but then, it's time situations, and I just decided to drop, and then ended up visiting my friends at Northridge, and that's how I met my sister here who was interpreting for me. And she helped me get into the university, and I got accepted at Cal State University in Northridge, and my whole world changed, all my plans, all my goals. Before, I was gonna go to a university. I was gonna go to Gallaudet. I was thinking about that school, but then I just decided, I'm gonna stay at the community college to stay with my best friend at that time. But I'm so happy that I still had the opportunity to go to a university, including CSUN, because I got to be in a dance class. I used to be in a dance team and things like that. So I was excited for the opportunity.
It's good. Was it a pretty welcoming environment being in the community college?
For the community college, I want to say I did feel welcomed. Okay. There was a few teachers there, kind of like same thing at the high school that I was at. There were advisors that I knew signed, some people knew signed, so it was good. The tutors knew signed as well. But it was a little bit challenging for the university. Yes, there was a deaf program there, and for me, I just kind of wanted to approach the hearing world a little bit more, but I didn't really see that there. And I wanted to go to like tutors without interpreters and challenge them to communicate with me without an interpreter. And, for example, I was in the Matadolls dance team at Northridge. It was an amazing team. But again, I didn't really have an interpreter there. So I had to just face the challenge, I couldn't hear the music or anything like that, but I just followed everyone's tempo and I just did my best, and I know that I did good. So, that's kind of the environment that I was in at the university level. But again, people don't know about deaf culture. And for me, I was raised in the hood. It was always complicated, and I'll explain a little bit later, but, growing up, I just really want to just change the world and change the environment so people don't feel the way that I did.
Yeah, you're very inspiring. Just a little bit of the conversation so far, I'm just like, man. Is there anything, there's a few different talking points that I kind of want to go about. I want to go about the dancing, the schooling, all that sort of stuff, but I guess we'll stick to the school first. Given that you went through these challenges and you tried to challenge the teachers as well as yourself, is there anything that you wish would have been either different or changed for future students? You kind of did touch upon kind of having, the teachers understanding sign and being able to kind of speak that way, but what would you kind of suggest moving forward for schools to kind of integrate a bit more? Is there anything that comes to mind?
So I have two kind of separate answers to that.
Okay.
So for the deaf community, there needs to be some better education because, for example, I'm still struggling with English with reading and writing. And if I was exposed more to reading and writing with my teachers at a young age, and I was taught how the hearing world is or the real world is, I wouldn't be afraid of it and I'll be able to just go over the barriers that way, but I wasn't. But for the hearing, I guess, educational standpoint, there needs to be more flexibility in general with people who have disabilities or are deaf because they cannot be afraid to approach us. And there needs to be less oppression when they are approaching us. There needs to be more welcoming. It doesn't matter if you're deaf, disabled, or have a different race, there needs to be welcoming there. So that's kind of like my answer for the deaf world as well as the hearing world, what I think more should be there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to hear that they wouldn't teach you reading and writing. What would they try and teach you more so in school as opposed to reading and writing at a young age?
You know, they did teach English, but it's like, so if you were mainstream and you maybe have a cochlear implant or a hearing aid or something like that, it was a little bit different for you. But if your family didn't communicate with you or there was a language delay, they kind of just ignored those students and they just focused on students that already had a grasp on English. And I think there should have been taught generally, it didn't matter, you know, like I feel like the teacher should have failed me if I failed instead of passing me type of thing. And so, you know, their assistants there, you know, if I was in trouble, they'll let me know, you better come in here, you better go to a detention or, you know, tutor. They kind of felt like they were my parents. And I felt that. And I loved that. And I remember my assistants would be like, you can't go with your friends so you finish your homework. So I was looking for the assistance on that point. But again, there needs to be some more flexibility. It doesn't matter if someone has a language delay or if they have a smarter grasp on English. You should teach and support us all the same way. And it also sucked because for my school, the funding wasn't really there. So that means the tutorings wasn't really there. So I had to go and get tutoring during lunch. You can't have lunch because I have to do that. Or after school, I want someone to sit down with me or FaceTime with me to help me with my homework. So that was the struggles due to funding and stuff.
Yeah. I don't like to hear that type of stuff, but as always, you know, it's nice to see you come out on the other side of it stronger and stuff. And kind of speaking about, I guess, the student aspect, now that we had talked about the teachers already, what are some ways that you would maybe say that they could communicate with you better and kind of like you were saying, they were afraid to approach you and stuff, like in what ways were they afraid to approach you? Sorry, I know those are like two separate questions.
I think they don't really know how to start. How to start communicating with a deaf person. They're not using their voice. They can't hear me. So maybe they feel like it's too rude to do anything else or to stare at them or to make them feel less than. So maybe that's the reason why they're afraid to approach. Maybe, you know, I have experienced oppression with people, you know, coming up to me. But I've also had people that use gestures who are really friendly and, you know, are willing to learn and, you know, let me know what's going on. Even if there's not an interpreter, they'll try to figure out with me. So I think some hearing people do recognize that they could just do that. But then also there's some hearing people that's like, I've never seen your energy before. You know, some deaf people are more shy than I am. So that makes it even more scary for the hearing person, or the deaf person is afraid that that hearing person would bully them. And there's two sides to that story. So I think for me, I'm just, again, here to represent, to not be afraid and just to try on both sides. You know, it doesn't hurt to try as hearing or a deaf person. And, you know, there's always options to communicate. So I think that's my answer.
Yeah. I think on that note, I have to say, and I might be wrong, but I feel like you have some pretty strong parents and siblings around you. I don't know. based off of this, it's just not every kid, I think, has that voice, and I think it's awesome to hear that, you know, you were kind of pushed to kind of use your voice and to speak up and to do the things that you enjoy, and kind of tapping back into the dance part of it. You know, that's something that I see you dancing on Instagram. Oh, go ahead.
Oh. I do want to say though, you're not wrong. And my family is a little complicated, including my parents. And they know sign, and I was lucky that my brothers know sign as well. But again, you know, me and my mom, the relationship is not really there. Me and my dad, our relationship is a little bit better. But how I say, my mom, she always had to focus on her own love. And my dad, you know, focused on drugs. So I've always was raised to be confused. There was always, I got the last message, you know, in school I would get bullied, or people would be jealous of me because I was leading stuff, or I was president of something, or they'll spill milk on me or throw food and stuff at me and push me and all these things. Even though we were both deaf at a deaf school, you know, and, you know, school teachers and assistants and staff really taught me to be brave. And I think that's really where that came from. My strength happened there. It didn't matter what happened at home with my family. And again, they do support me. My family does love me. They come to my performances, everything like that. But sometimes there's moments and times that I have to get out that environment. And then I would go into school and then get bullied. So, you know, it's a lot. A lot of people come up to me now, but before they were mean to me, you know, but stuff like that, right? And, you know, it just really made me stronger. And, you know, I've been independent since I was 18. I moved and I lived with roommates. I went to the, you know, university, community college life, and now I'm 25 years old, and I'm just like, wow, a lot happened. You know, sometimes I break down. But I still see myself as a loyal, strong person, and that's really where my strength came from, that environment of being in school and dealing with family and all that. So
yeah, I can definitely imagine that it comes from all those types of experiences. You know, the hard experiences, sometimes the easy experiences, sometimes having a certain mentor who just treats you super nice and you're like, okay, I can keep going. And was dance maybe something that, you know, you kind of took up and you were like, I'm inspired by this, I love this? Like, how did you get into dance?
You know, funny story. I grew up always, when I was a little girl, I was very girly. Mm-hmm. You know, I always wanted to be a model, you know, and I would look at people dancing, and my family would always encourage me to dance. They loved to dance too, and my dad would always do like break dancing and stuff, and I'd watch him do that, and I'll look on TV, like MTV. And I would see Beyonce on TV dance and everything. I really loved her energy, and I was like, I would try to emulate that. Also crumping, I would see that, and I would try to emulate that. And I just kind of had this natural rhythm in me. A lot of people do not believe that I'm deaf because of that, but I am actually deaf. I am a dancer, and that does not stop me. And I've met a lot of people who are young, who are older, that inspire me every day to keep going. And I'm still looking for my role model as a deaf dancer, right? Because I know there's a few deaf dancers out there, but we haven't really connected yet. They haven't inspired me yet. So I feel like I just really want, as a dancer, to promote other deaf dancers and deaf people in general. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, that is totally fair. I think Beyonce she was big, I think, growing up for even me as well, and watching certain music videos, you would be like, oh my God, the way this woman moves, ah! I loved it. I loved the music videos, all that sort of stuff. And then the crumping too, absolutely, for sure. So it's cool to see, you know, how that inspiration kind of comes from there. And how you're saying too, that you don't see anybody per se deaf who's in the community or that maybe that you haven't connected with yet. So it is cool that you're trying to bring a voice to that as well. Moving forward, are you looking to do more dance, kind of take it more full time? Are you looking to do modeling full time? What's kind of your trajectory, and where do you want to kind of go with this?
Okay, so before, I always was like, I'm gonna be a model full time, but now it's changing to more, a lot of other things I want to do full time, right? My skills, I have it in almost every department. I love acting. I also love modeling. I love dancing. I want to host a business and collaborate with different communities, maybe the trans community or people of color, the hearing community. I just want to do things and collaborate with a lot of different people, because I know a lot of deaf people have a worse experience than I did. Maybe they're in jail. Maybe they're not able to join either the deaf or the hearing world. So I want to have the community to talk with them and share their stories. There's so many things I want to do. And, right now I have a manager because we need to work together. I need a team. And, some people do have that one goal, that one thing that they want to do full time, and then they'll go on to a different thing. But honestly, I want to do everything at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You sound like me. I have like 7 Instagrams that I'm managing at the same time. I like photos. I like makeup,
different hats. That's
what
we call it.
I like this. I like that. So yeah, I get you. When you're a creative person, there's like 70 things that you want to do, and just tackling them one at a time. You're like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this, and keep moving. All of that sort of stuff. So I like to hear that you're, looking at all these different avenues and also having a manager, which is good. One note that we did touch upon, and I think moving forward, what are some things that you would tell, I guess, people in the deaf community and the people who are in the hearing community? What are the best ways to communicate with you or communicate in general? Any notes that you just have for people that you feel like they need to know?
I think generally, hearing people that want to approach a deaf person, again, there's different deaf people. Some people were raised using speech. Some people do not know sign language at all. Some people only know sign language and have a deaf family and a history of deaf people in their life. There's a lot of different people in the deaf community. But again, there's options on how to communicate for each one of them. Yeah. I think the hearing world needs to make sure that they're also comfortable, because some deaf people are not comfortable with speaking. Maybe they just want to write, or maybe they just want to bring an interpreter. Some deaf people might want to teach sign, and then y'all connect that way. So just being able to let that be natural and have that natural flow, and not to be afraid of approaching each other. My boyfriend, for example, he is hearing, and he always makes sure that he is there for me, Sometimes if he doesn't know a sign or something like that, he will learn. So he learned the ABCs at first, and then I would show him different signs. So again, that's an example, not being afraid of learning and having flexibility and have a good attitude, Don't doubt yourself. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. No, just have a good attitude. And that influences both parties to feel comfortable to approach each other. So that's my tip.
I think that's a very accurate statement, and it goes towards everything in life, whether you want to learn, like you said, sign language, a different language, a skill, so on and so forth. So many people are afraid to use their voice, they're afraid to speak up, they're afraid to try things because of, like you're saying, failure and stuff like that. And I think that that's very key and very important to just keep going, keep trying to learn. And just
and with the deaf community, also watch your attitude too, because some deaf people are like, oh, you know how to communicate with me? Oh, it's done. No, be able as a deaf person as well to communicate with the hearing person and allow both parties again to figure it out. Some hearing people are so fascinated with the deaf community and want to learn, but they also need the deaf person to want to, be a part of that too. Because some deaf people are like, oh, you don't know a sign? Oh, I'm done. And I think the deaf people need to also give time and flexibility for the hearing world too. Because sometimes I see both ends having difficulties. And again, deaf people typically, they don't really show their skills or their talents or their voice. Sometimes they're just satisfied where they are. And for me, I'm like, no, tell them how you feel. Tell the hearing world what they need to know, because they don't know. And it's like, how do you expect the hearing world to communicate or to get better if you don't communicate with them? So that's me, again, encouraging the deaf world to be like, I don't care if you're hearing, I don't care if you're deaf, let's figure it out. So again, that's it. I feel like I'm in both worlds, so it's complicated.
No, for sure. I think you spoke about your boyfriend as well, and just how he's hearing, and all of that sort of stuff. How did you meet him, and how did that conversation go about him learning, so on and so forth? If you are okay with talking about that.
Yeah, okay. So one day, me and my sister, who's interpreting for right now, we went to an event. It was like an open mic art event. There's different artists, like rappers, poets, short little advertisements, stuff like that. And we seen him. His name is Jatan, my boyfriend, Jatan Gilbert. And he just kept looking at me with his friends. And I was just like, okay, whatever. You know, obviously a lot of people look at us because I'm, you know, deaf signing. But anyways, he came up to me and he was rapping or something. And I feel like the music, something went wrong. And my sister, who was interpreting for me, was like, the music went wrong. So anyways, after that, we were exchanging business cards and meeting different people. And Jatan came up to me and he was like, hey, my name is Jatan. And he knew a little bit of sign because we were in the CSUN area. So I'm pretty sure he probably learned a little bit of sign that way. And so when I said, hey, my name is Keyla, my sister, the interpreter, helped us communicate a little bit in the beginning. We exchanged Instagrams and phone numbers. And then we hanged out again. And that's how we started dating and stuff. And I was like, are you serious about this relationship? And he really did. He showed that he wanted to be in a relationship with me and learn sign language, you know, including ABCs and basic signs. And you know, in the beginning, we did communicate through text, maybe like in the first 2 months while I was still teaching him sign language. He was also learning sign language through YouTube, different sign language apps. And that's what I mean. Like, hearing people should be really motivated to do that, you know, and he's still improving to this day, and our communication got stronger. So yeah.
I love it. You don't hear stories like that. When you do, you're like, that's freaking awesome that he knew a little bit, didn't know so much, and goes into it and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna learn because I want to learn and I care about this person. How long have you guys been together now?
Almost 4 years now.
I love it. That's awesome. That is really awesome. Oh, I don't know. Are there any other questions that maybe you want to talk about, or any other talking points? I think like this whole interview has been super sweet, super eye-opening, and just, I don't know, it's important for me, and I think for people that I know that I work with, to just kind of get to see and get to hear, you know, a different perspective.
You know, I had a tough time growing up. I'm a survivor of abuse. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of a lot of things. And it was a complicated life growing up. But it made me who I am. It made me stronger. And that's why I dance, and that's why I model, because that's how I express myself through my body. You know, any negatives, I make positive. And I know it's hard. You know, sometimes you want to just get away and give up, but you just can't. Don't give up. Just keep going in that moment. And sometimes you need a break. And sometimes you just need to express yourself and show people where you came from and how those negatives can be ignored and you can just keep going, and that you're not alone, and that people also maybe have that experience. Doesn't matter, deaf, hearing, disabled. And I wanted to just show that, to keep going. And it will be hard. And sometimes you might break down, or sometimes you just want to quit everything that you're doing. But again, you have to keep fighting it. It doesn't matter where you're at now, because you're still here. You're on earth, right? So just keep going. And that's just what I wanted to add.
It's important. It's so important. I guess moving on with this next year, moving forward, do you have any goals that you for sure want to achieve in the next year?
I definitely want to be successful. I want more recognition of who I am as a deaf person. I'm Afro-Latina. Mm-hmm. I also want more representation of people, doesn't matter who you are, but I want representation of, for example, the deaf community. I recognize it's the same deaf, white lens, raised in a deaf institution, but I want to show the different side of someone who's deaf, raised in the hood, or who's of color, you know? And same thing, I want the hearing world to have flexibility and to collaborate more with the deaf community. Because, you know, I don't know, one day I will be a Hollywood star, who knows? One day I will be a Hollywood famous model or dancer or something. I'm down for all of that, and I'm looking forward to that, and I feel like I will. You know, I'm still young, and I'm just gonna keep going with those goals in mind.
I love it. I think this next year will be definitely a good one for you. If there's anywhere that I can think of that I can help you or place you, whether it be photo shoots or it be a dance thing that I might need for something random, I'm definitely going to do my best to keep you in mind and just, you know, help you with your career wherever I can as well, because this conversation is very inspiring, and I'm kind of inspired to learn sign now, I think, because I want to be able to communicate better. Even with our photo shoots that we've done together, I always kind of think to myself, I'm like, oh, I feel bad because I'm making this text message, and I feel like it could be easier if I could just, you know, speak with you more freely. Even with this interpreter here, I'm like, ah, like I wish that I could jump in somehow. So I do thank you so much for.
You know, a lot of people who don't know sign language, you know, I'm used to that, and I know a lot of hearing people who want to learn. And again, just I want to look at the motivation, you know. I appreciate everything. I think communication at any point, if it is texting, if it is reading or writing or whatever, that's better than nothing. I remember when we first went to, I forgot what it was called, some modeling thing that we did, and we exchanged numbers. All these hearing people were laughing and talking to each other. I don't mind it, you know, but at the same time, I did want to say, hey, I'm deaf. Here I'm texting to communicate. You know, personally, I am very flexible with the hearing world and deaf world. But some deaf people are not that flexible, but I am. And I care about communication at any way, and there's many options to approach it. So if you learn sign, that's cool. If you want to be like, hey, how do you sign this? Like, I'll just teach you how to sign that. You know, it's a simple thing. You know, if you're like, how do I sign this pose? You know, I'll just teach you, and I'm willing to do that. Again, having different modes of communication is what I want.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much again for coming. And yeah, cheers to more projects together.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.